And again, this is Jay Turo. I'm the managing partner of Growthink, and this is our episode 2 in the Growthink Innovation Series on opportunities in smart wearables. Before we get started, I'm just going to kind of ask everybody to give us a sense of we've got a very dynamic, sophisticated panel, and it's very helpful for them to understand a little bit about who's on the line here. So we're just going to run a few poll questions here. So if everybody could take a moment and answer these, how would you best describe your interest in the webinar? So the choices are: I'm an investor seeking opportunities, I'm an entrepreneur seeking ideas, I have a general interest in the webinar topic. This is great. So we've got a great entrepreneurial crowd here. So that's great. 73% voted. And right now we've got, let me close this and show everybody the poll results here. So we can share these results. So we've got entrepreneurs, a very strong entrepreneurial contingent, which is awesome. We have some investors on the call as well, and a general interest in the webinar topic. So that's great. That's great. Let's just run one more poll here. Actually, two more. But this is so basically, how would you best describe your knowledge of smart wearables? Even though it's check boxes, but I only want you choosing one. You consider yourself a well-informed, I'm informed but not an expert, I'm new to the space but want to learn more. This is great. This is great. This is a good 32%. Hopefully we can get this kind of voter turnout in November. 71% voted. That's great. I appreciate the interactivity with everyone. So let's take a look here what we have. Sharing these results. 22% are well-informed experts, 61% are informed, and 2% are new to the space but want to learn more. That's great. Okay. And then our next question is, our final question, I like this question. So what was your opinion of Google Glass, which was discontinued last year? Never heard of it. Good idea, but ahead of its time. An Orwellian future for which I want no part. Oh, yeah. This is great. This is good. You see, this is good for you to know. What do we got here? I'm going to close. I'm very impressed with the voting. 80% voted. This is great. This is awesome. All right, so let's take a look here. Let's share those results. And 60%, so a good idea ahead of its time. So you have a lot of techno-optimists on the call, which is awesome. Okay, so let's dig right in here, how this works, today's goals, and then get right into our all-star panel. The time we have, make sure they have as much time to share their insights and expertise with the group. We're going to go 45 minutes in the main discussion area. And as you have questions as we go, please enter them using the GoToWebinar toolbar, and we'll certainly work to ask them to the group. And then at the 45-minute mark, we'll end the main presentation. And then folks that want to stay on, our panelists have been gracious enough to stay with us through the end to the top of the hour. It's a participatory sport, so the webinar technology is awesome. It works really well when we're doing this. When people are asking questions as we go, that keeps it very lively. We're going to keep things moving. So I think the goals here today. Certainly industry-specific ideas and wisdom. So hardware, software applications, this very dynamic space. Really looking at, we love these spaces. Wearables is really a space that's doubling right now every 2 to 3 years in terms of devices that are in circulation, and certainly their efficacy is growing by leaps and bounds every day. I mean, I see some amazing things. We were looking at a Kickstarter campaign for a hydration device, which is cool on many levels for the athletes among us. Now I'm a parent of 9 and 10-year-old boys, and their mother is just absolutely obsessed with their hydration. So devices like that are very cool. Our theme here, we've got some on our panel. 3 of our 4 panelists are very dynamic entrepreneurs within the healthcare space and things they're doing within health and wellness. And so a theme of wellness as it relates to wearables is a mega theme within the space. That's a big thing we're going to talk about today for sure. And then winners, losers, prognostications. Basically get some insight from folks that have raised money in the space, that have seen their services adopted, and have also seen some of the challenges of adoption in this early phase of these new technologies. Now, what I love is, because we've got a mixed group here, and one of the points of the Growthink Innovation Series is to look at these high-flying sectors. What are the lessons for mainstream business? So, if we're not in the wearables arena ourselves, what is this idea? The medium is the message, and that as we move to this always on, Internet of Things world. Everything is personalized. What does that mean for the way we market, the way we interface with our customers, with our employees? What does that all mean? I think is a huge theme that as we move away from the PC environment to an always-on environment, and as these devices become almost part of us, I want to show you a quick video on Think as we introduce Issy. That what does this all mean? So I think those are lessons that can be very thought-provoking, both on a personal and professional level. Let's get right through it. So our all-star panel, and I'm going to introduce them as we go. We're going to do something a bit creative here with some videos. So we have Mr. Issy Goldwasser, the CEO of Think, David Park, dialing in from Virginia. David, it's great to have you here from HP Enterprise and talking about the services arena as well as the some of the governmental aspects of related to security and the dynamics of wearables in that arena. Ben Parziebach, the founder and chief technology officer of Walker Tracker, doing some really interesting things in the arena of corporate wellness and how wearables is changing that arena quite dramatically. And Dr. Oscar Rodriguez, I live here in Los Angeles. I have an 83-year-old father and a 78-year-old mother in central Massachusetts. So what he's doing with Reassure Analytics is really inspiring, and excited to have him share some of his insights from there. So I'm going to start, if you don't mind, hopefully I won't embarrass you here, but I want to show you this video of Issy, a quick video.
My name is Issy Goldwasser.
Of Issy here about Think.
Welcome.
Hopefully everybody can hear this.
Think is the company that's making the first stress relief wearable. Modern day stress is really a modern epidemic, and we all feel it. We know that 4 out of 5 Americans sort of have mental health symptoms related to stress. Stress is the largest health epidemic of our times, and we need a solution now. Think is building the next generation of wearables that go beyond tracking to solve problems and empower us. Everyone looks to the future and says, can wearables do more important things for me? I like that they track my activity and my steps, but can they do something to actively help me? The product we're launching in 2017 offers a better choice. The relief of stress medications without chemicals and their side effects in minutes. Yeah, the first thing you see is you see a wearable technology. And in the case of our next product, you're going to put it around your neck. And you connect your Think Relax to your phone. It pairs. So your phone controls it. You're always in control. You choose the effect. And all of it is around the same themes. How do you physiologically relax, actively relax? You can be more carefree, stress-free before you go to bed or when you're just at home. Think is about pursuing our full potential. It's about building the technologies that give us access to the amazing things our mind and body can do. And that means neuroscience. The technology is really based on low energy electrical pulses. And those pulses activate nerves in your neck. And those nerves are the same nerves that you feel if you have a splash of cold water or you're hugging or kissing someone. They're the same pathways. But these nerves communicate with a part of your brain that controls your stress response. So what the nerves are doing and what the technology is doing is simply telling your body to relax. We first had to create, invent, innovate something that first seems almost nearly impossible. We know now with our technology we can deliver the first chemical-free way to actively relieve stress. Imagine delivering a product that lowers stress in the world. How amazing would that be? You can stop imagining now and make it a reality. Think. Use your head.
I'm just getting relaxed just watching that, Issy. So that's awesome. So
it's hard to look at myself, yeah.
Sorry to embarrass you by watching yourself on screen, but it's a really great, it's such an awesome vision. And it ties into this kind of opening question about the future of wearables. When people think about the Fitbit, the Apple Watch, what you're doing with Think, what are some of the areas that are being overlooked? What is hype and, what is reality?
Sure. Thanks. By the way, Jay, great to be on the panel here with everyone else. And if you can't hear me, let me know. I'll
I'm great.
Something here, but good. So, that's a big question, future wearables. We think about that a lot here at Think. Of course, our dimension for the future of wearables is really wearables we call proactive wearables that actually actively interacting with your body, with your mind, to really give you access to your body's own natural mechanisms. So in our case, our focus is stress, and what we want to do is just use your body's own ability to release stress, which is the rest and digest mode that we all have. And how do we trigger that mode when we want it so we can be centered and focused and relaxed? And so we do that by stimulating nerves using our wearable technology. And that whole field of proactive wearables, and especially a focus on stress, is what we want to be a leader in. So to us, the future of wearables, and I believe the most powerful wearables in terms of impact, are going to be seen in this area. Wearables that actively engage with you, do something. And they'll even be more powerful when they really pair up with trackers and any kind of sensors that close the loop. So that whole side is critical as well. But we're focused on the activation part of the equation.
Awesome, awesome. So there's a lot of jumping off points there, but you use the word tracking, so I got to go to Ben Parzibat from a Walker Tracker, and I'm going to show again. You know, I'm here in LA, so we got to go multimedia here. So I'm going to show this awesome video from Ben's company and his partnership with Anthem Blue Cross. What Walker
Hi, I'm
Tracker
Dr. Laura Clapper, the Anthem Blue Cross Medical Director who works with the County of San Diego. With the great weather and beautiful parks and beaches here in San Diego County, there's many opportunities for us to exercise and take good care of ourselves. But even in a beautiful place, it can be hard to get started exercising and making healthy choices every day. One way to begin is by joining the Maintain, Don't Gain Challenge, sponsored by Anthem Blue Cross. The Maintain, Don't Gain Challenge is designed to help you pick up some healthy habits, such as staying active, drinking water, and eating better, all of which are needed to maintain a healthy weight. These positive choices can help you stay focused through tempting times like the holidays. All County of San Diego employees can sign up at sdcounty.walkertracker.com. The challenge lasts for 8 weeks, and if you participate, you can earn rewards. Every day you log into the website, fill in your weight.
I'm going to stop that once we get the Walker Tracker plug in there, Ben. And so you used a couple of themes. One is rewards, gamification, community. Some of the themes that you've talked to about, related to the quantified self and what really works with fitness and wellness and community and things like games and contests and support from your peers. So how important is that with some of these devices, those social aspects in terms of them being used and kept on being used?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think they're vital. We kind of like to think of creating the entire ecosystem around the device because the sex appeal of the device, at least the activity trackers, it's a wonderful sort of gateway drug to get people interested in the idea of transformation in one's body and in one's environment. But the sex appeal begins to wear off somewhat quickly, and so we build an ecosystem around that, and it's part of the. I remember hearing at the beginning of the information age that the most important skill that anyone's going to need to have is not knowledge, but the ability to synthesize knowledge, and I think it's like that's what we try to do with the data from devices is contextualize it, storyify it, make it totally relevant to them so that it becomes part of their culture and something that they remain attached to and remain in that sort of transformative state around. So we build in a story around it. We build in lots of communication tools. We build in sort of social sort of alterations so that you stick with the program.
That's great. That's great. And I'm sorry I'm jumping like the Academy Awards here, but Oscar, I've got to go to the video here with Reassure Analytics and what you're doing. I'm going to show this video. This is it ties in one of the themes that Ben just mentioned about getting people to stick with a device. And I'm thinking about my 83-year-old father here with what you're doing with Reassure. So let me play this video, and then we'll be just kind of going through here to the conversation. so cool.
Hey, Dave, I just want to say congratulations.
Hello, pharmacist. We'll get it taken care of for you.
That is so awesome. So, Ben, you're an MD, and you talk about this seems such an amazing positive. So, talk about how is the medical community embracing ideas like this, wearables, and where's the resistance in terms of having this, really all our elders around the country, around the world. What are some of the resistance? This seems like such an obvious and awesome idea. So, where's the resistance?
Resistance. It's kind of interesting. So you have two sides of this. In medicine, I think we've gotten to a point in medicine where it's gotten out of the hands of the average person. People forget medicine was actually created originally by people who felt the pain or had an issue, and then they created a solution to it, and then it, over the centuries, became formalized into what we now know as medicine, and then it became super hyper specialized. And we lost sight of the fact that the true actionable medicine is really three things: prevention, awareness, and action. And those are the three elements of actually keeping healthy and staying healthy. And I think we get some pushback on one side from doctors who have gotten so wrapped up in the idea that data has to be 100% accurate for it to be usable. And I think some of the other speakers, and I think Ben and Izzy are aware of this, and they mentioned it earlier, was, Ben, you mentioned the sort of the sexiness wears off. Prevention in medicine is probably the least sexy thing in the world. And so for us to try and get people to prevent, and interestingly enough, one of the things that we were challenged with was that lack of sexiness in terms of prevention. And so from the user side, I think the latest numbers we saw was the wearable sexiness wears off in about 6 months, and then that wearable ends up in a drawer. Mm-hmm. So we needed, kind of like what Ben was saying, is create something around that in order to help people take advantage of that technology and see the value of it. We have a situation where the basic need that people have is kind of like, I think maybe it was what you were talking about, Jay, is, I mean, my mom's over 70. She just went through knee surgery. She actually, a few years back, had a heart attack, died on the table, and had to be brought back. So for me, the idea of being able to have an eyes on those things and not know something is wrong when they collapse, fall, or hit the table, because when that happens, the chances of death and injury are huge, is to get it started earlier. Now, we're not a preventative society, especially in the United States. Mm-hmm. So those, for us, are some of the challenges we've had with CareMind.
Yeah, I think that's a great terms of just the global view to that really segues right into David, Director of Digital Service, HP Enterprise, and on your profile, this you trying to bring all this together about the intersection of mobile, of digital, of apps, of Internet of Things, of wearables, of the cloud, of enterprise, of monetization, of government. The government obviously is a massive player in healthcare, and then agile. So, big question, but the intersection, how do wearables, how does this, the Apple Watch and Fitbit and what Dr. Rodriguez here is talking about, and what Issy's doing, how does it play into this tech ecosystem of the future? I think you're on mute, David.
There we go. All right, thanks. So I think the reason we're having this talk is that there's this tremendous opportunity, and these are all cross points that have to do with wearables, right? So we have a lot of the fitness devices. The conduit to getting actual visual display is going to be a mobile phone, so mobile comes into play. And I think all, Ben, Oscar, and Izzy all have mobile apps that users interface with. So you have user experience that kick in. We've been also looking at wearables that aren't necessarily sort of health or fitness related. So you did your poll on Google Glass. So we've looked at that for the commercial sector. We've done some prototypes and proof of concepts for some government customers as well. Where one thing that there's still sort of a big gap right now that from a government perspective and commercial is around security. So different than privacy, but when a lot of these devices are wireless and depending on Bluetooth, security really kicks in. So Veterans Affairs, for example, has an active RFI right now looking for vendors to figure out how they secure all these devices. Now we've got all these endpoints, and they're all talking wirelessly. How do you secure that in the facility or inside the home of veterans? So I think that's still a huge gap, but all these are intersections where enterprises now come in, mobile steps in. You've got different IoT devices where wearables are part of. So you've got really sort of huge opportunity, but at the same time, lots of places where they intersect and things that we have to solve for.
There's a theme here of adoption, and a question for you, Izzy, that I was watching this morning a CNBC and the Palo Alto Apple Store and the iPhone 7 and Tim Cook and the crowds and they had the CNBC analyst had the Apple wireless earbuds on because Apple has removed the earphone jack. So we talk about so fashion as a wearables value proposition. So just this idea of adoption, getting used to wearing these devices. I know that's an issue that you're grappled with. Think it's something that you're wearing. So how is fashion? Because how is that a value prop in adoption, and then as a result, then the efficacy and the usefulness of devices?
Well, first, we're all consumers, so I think everybody has a good view of this. To be honest, I think the wrist, the neck, are natural places to wear things. Obviously, if something could be underneath your clothing and it's not intrusive, that could work if it's depending on how helpful it is to you. We had a unique experience. Our first product was worn on the temple, so we kind of put it right in front of people. And what we learned is that actually about a quarter of the people are super excited to wear something like that. You don't wear it all day; you wear it for 10 minutes. But just having something futuristic that you're using to change, how you feel, was something that a lot of our customers love. But a much larger, I would say twice the number of people were apprehensive and anxious, to put something on their forehead because they weren't sure what it was doing. They weren't, didn't feel comfortable the way it looked. And so our second product is really around the neck because of that. And it's a really important lesson that I think people are just, we're just naturally comfortable with what we know. We wear things around our neck, around our wrist, and that's really what we are comfortable with. So fashion, I didn't address the fashion question, but I'm just addressing more of the behavioral psychology and how we, what we're willing to wear, which I think is actually the most important thing.
So this is a question I want to throw it out to both Oscar and Ben. This issue of engagement and adoption. Maybe first, you guys both take it from you work with Anthem. Ben, Oscar, you're an MD, so you're dealing with the traditional medical community. What are the themes around adoption of these programs that everybody says that are positive, but you're going to get some percentage of the folks that are just going to drop off? How can that potentially change and then affect the business opportunities in the space? Oscar, you'd like to start, then we'll go to Ben.
Sure. So you've got two ends of the spectrum. Now we're not a medical device. We never went that route. So the adoption on the physician or the healthcare provider side is not really that needed in our situation. I do have experience with electronic health records and the adoption on that side, so I'm happy to talk about that. In a nutshell, it's not good for the older doctors, those who are probably around 45 and older. The EHR adoption has been disastrous of the technology, so you could imagine adoption of anything like this might be even worse. The younger doctors, I think, are more amenable. For our end, we deal a lot with the adoption and the engagement of the actual user, and it's interesting. Ours is one that you tap into that one or two things that a person really needs. For example, our chief marketing officer, she joined our team, and in part was because she has a 95-year-old grandfather, and her mother takes care of him, and he lives alone, and he's very healthy, 95-year-old, but all of a sudden, they couldn't get a hold of him one day, and everybody in the family started freaking out. And I think that's a very visceral need that people have, and that's where we're tapping into the engagement. Our engagement's a little weird if you think about it, because our device, our tech is designed to be able to help provide care to someone else, and so the engagement has to be on the person who's caregiving. And so we, as opposed to what Ben's doing with Anthem, I think is, self-engagement in terms of improving their own health. And so we've had quite a few challenges with it, but I think if you tap into those visceral things that people at the base level really want, and you've seen it in the past, like with losing weight, for example. Does that stick a lot of times? No, but it does get people to buy a lot of different things and try out a bunch of different gyms and sign up and things like that. So I think where we're going to see this going is as we entrepreneurs start getting better and better at understanding and employing these visceral levers within the consumer market, then I think you're going to start seeing those engagement numbers rise. But I don't know if we know exactly what that magic formula is yet.
And I imagine that when you're making the Walker Tracker value proposition to the County of San Diego, to Anthem, I mean, engagement and adoption has to be a major value proposition you need to communicate. So when you talk to organizations like that, what are some of the themes that come up, and what works, what isn't, what works now, and what do you think will start working, say, a year, 2 years from now?
Right. Yeah, of course, we deal with that all the time. I mean, one of our primary measurements of success is engagement, because we want, first of all, we want lots of employees, or if that happens to be a municipality, members of the community, we want them to begin. We want to get them involved, and then it's our job to sort of keep them involved and keep them participating. So in terms of the wearable device itself, ease of use, fashionability, and accuracy are just huge. And those all seem like really obvious things, but it's amazing how difficult those are. Like, if you don't believe in the accuracy of your device, and actually, I mean, because we are so in the trenches and we hear about the devices, where we work with all the devices so much, we know all of their weird little quirks and nits and stuff like that, and how each of those little devices will throw people off. So that's sort of the first thing. So we have, we usually come in with a suite of device recommendations and approaches to that, and then along with that, for us, devices are extremely social, in that people love to take out their devices and show their numbers to other people, and to use them in concert with each other, or even in large groups, and to compete with each other. It's a very, very social thing for us. And then we continue to sort of build that story where we have executives from the top-down level getting involved in it, and knowing that, this is an organization-wide sort of activity, and then you go on and you build on other metrics along with that. You build on hydration or sleep or weight watching, but more than that, you try to maintain that sense of interest and fun. You build a story around it. Humans love to have that story, so we build in, especially in our programs, we have these maps where companies can build in a tremendous amount of culture and interest in that, and actually develop a real story along that. So that keeps people engaged. It keeps them moving way beyond the initial sexiness of the device.
So this question comes up, David, coming back to HP Enterprise and this theme of data. and Issy and Oscar and Ben and entrepreneurs like them are collecting a lot of data. The New York Times last week talked about basically there was a deal between Nike and the University of Michigan that there was a clause that allowed Nike to harvest data from collegiate athletes from their apparel. So what are the concerns about security? You're there in Virginia, you're near D.C. There's there's the Affordable Care Act. There's HIPAA. Who owns the data? There's all this data that's being collected that's incredibly valuable, and what are some of the security concerns that come up in the halls of Washington around this data and how it can affect the adoption at the entrepreneurial, at the device level?
Sure. On the government side, there's certainly a huge push to open a lot of this data, but I think when we as panelists met yesterday, I think that was something that Izzy, Oscar, and Ben are all dealing with, is around privacy. Like, who owns that data and how do you anonymize it and how do you share it? So, our focus from HP's side is going to be around how do you manage that data, because as we know, there's going to be tremendous amount of data being collected. I think the trick is, how do we make sure that your data belongs to you, and we make sure that things are anonymized when they do get shared with permission. I think I don't think we've really, I think we all agree on it and how it gets implemented. With so many vendors jumping in and creating this data, I think it's still a sort of a hole that needs to be filled. And I'm sure Ben and Oscar and Izzy can share their stories as well.
So
yeah, if I could jump in here, it does really feel like a real wild west of data right now. This year, I mean, especially speaking to the entrepreneurs out there, it's been a really interesting year for us as our clients have increasingly asked, our big clients have increasingly asked for HIPAA compliance and security compliance, and we do these huge questionnaires on that. So we spend a lot of time reassuring our clients that we're moving beyond HIPAA requirements. We are ahead of the curve on that. That data on an individual level is restricted as absolutely much as possible, and we're reporting only aggregate data. But really, in any of these larger scale programs, it's the trend line itself that we try to report on, and try to show and try to insulate even from within the company that particular individual's data.
And if I can just add to that, I think Ben and David make excellent points. From our perspective, and to talk to all the entrepreneurs who are out there who are looking into this space, maybe considering jumping in, the way we approached it, since our platform is me looking at someone else's data, like my mother's data or my father's data or my kid's data, people think of this as very kind of, well, it's kind of like I know their email password, so I can just go ahead and look at. But when you start talking about health and wellness data, which let's get real about this, it's heart rate, in our case, it's heart rate, step activity, and hours slept. It's not that big of a deal of data, of information, unless you start looking at it in aggregate. Unless you start looking at it, it doesn't identify the person, it doesn't do any of that. And so, but even with that, I approached it like I would a doctor who has to follow HIPAA and high-tech regulations, which states that I can't share the data. If, let's say, Ben is my patient and his wife walks up and says, I want to know about Ben's health, I have to turn to Ben and go, can I say something? And I have to get Ben's permission. So that's how we approached ours, is that you cannot even share with a partner the data unless you get the permission from the person, and that's how we set it up. For that very reason of what David was saying, which is they're asking you to be really secure about this, and as Ben said, and kind of be ahead of the curve as it relates to how we secure it. But that actually led to an interesting problem with our user base. The majority of our initial user base were doing this on behalf of their 80, 90, 75-year-old parent who wasn't tech savvy. So they had to go into their email accounts and answer the requested email that was supposed to keep this secure. They're already sharing the password with their grandmother or grandfather. So it's kind of, it's a little bit of a circus, a Wild West circus out there, because the end goal, and I think David was the one who said it, it's going to come down to what people want to do and how they're going to get it done. So we can put those protections in place. We had one person who found a situation with our system because they were using the same device to log themselves in as a monitor and log their loved one in to be monitored. And we realized, oh my God, most of the people are going to probably be doing it that way, as opposed to actually sending it the way we had it, was send it to their email for approval.
That's great. There's a lot of themes here that in terms of adoption are very important within the space. I want to just take a little bit of a detour here. You're there in Silicon Valley. You're a small company, and you're seeing things like the Apple Watch, like that next generation iPhone, Samsung. There's very big players, and the device is making hardware to interface with the smartphones and the other devices. As a small player competing against giants, how do you think, for the entrepreneurs on the line, how do you think about that? If they're either coming at it from a hardware standpoint or a mobile app standpoint where there's so much noise, you've been successful in raising capital in the Valley. How do you position yourself vis-a-vis the giants?
Well, I think, true innovation, not everything is for ventures, but there are certainly certain types of ideas and innovations that really are made for ventures only, and they're not going to happen unless a startup does that. In our case, we're at the interface of neuroscience and consumer products or wearables, and that's something that you're not going to find in a hospital, in an academic research lab, or in Apple or Samsung, because it's just at the interface of two fields that interface doesn't exist right now outside of medicine. And so it's something that a startup can only do, really, and that's the advantage that startups have when they pursue something like that. Of course, there are other things that a startup can do better than a big company, but that's your advantage. You have to do the unexpected, to pursue something that seems impossible or seems like it's not fruitful, and then prove everybody wrong. That's the advantage of being a startup. So you can move quickly, pursue aggressive areas that are murky.
So I want to throw this question out. I know that Oscar's coming at it directly from the application standpoint, Ben more tangentially, but I'd like to get both your perspectives on. We have a lot of mobile app entrepreneurs that I come into contact with. So, and then there's just the noise within that arena of the apps. There's so many apps. And how do you think about that from a strategic standpoint? How do you get heard above the noise with kind of a small company marketing budget, and just just get through the noise of all those apps and make your app a core app to whatever that person is doing, whether it be on the Fitbit or the Apple Watch or on their smartphone. Maybe Oscar, you can go first because it's right there as an adoption challenge for you.
Yeah, so I think there's something that you've got to understand if you are an entrepreneur in this mobile app space for health and wellness. This is not Candy Crush. This is not, a gaming app, and all the rules do not apply in this space. Whether you're talking engagement rules, whether you're talking about interfacing rules, any of the rules that you've read online about how to make the next $1 million gaming app, just throw those out the window, because this is health and wellness and it doesn't apply. You have to build something around it, and I think Ben can speak to this pretty well because I've seen what they do with Anthem, and I've seen it done in other companies, is that when you're talking about this kind of space, you have to build a culture around your mobile app. You've got to build, so if you go to our website, I write a weekly article on some aspect of health and wellness that is directly related to what is current in the situation in the world right now, and also what would be top of mind of what we believe our user base is. And so we build that culture around it. We send out a newsletter every week as well. We are engaged in social media. We support certain events that are going on, because in this space, it's a culture that you're building. You're not just building an app. And I think it's a lot of work, and I think it's something that people need to understand that going into this space. I think I've seen a couple come in and out because they approach this health and wellness space as a gaming app, and I think that's what was their downfall.
Those are some great insights there. Ben, you've come at it from a different angle, probably a less noisy angle, but then it has its own set of challenges. So Just your
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with Oscar more. I think he's right on in terms of building that culture. But you know, I mean, I think we are in a slightly luckier position here because when somebody is looking for what we do, they're looking for a big solution. It's not going to be found solely in an app, and so they're looking for guidance. They're looking for consultation. They're looking for a complete technological solution. So it usually doesn't. It's not something that happens. I'd hate to be in that situation where your livelihood is dependent upon a single search in the App Store. So we do have some luck there. We also get, you know, what we try to do is, along with the technological solution and along with the other stuff we do do spend a lot of time with clients because we tend to work with pretty big clients, and so we are reliant on people passing us on by name, and that's huge. That's a very old-fashioned way to do business, but it works for us. It works really well. So
I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here, David, that you know, you may not characterize HP this way, but some of the audience may say that there's a certain legacy aspects to the business model that is threatened by the kind of the ISIs and the Bens and the Oscars of the world and how they approach things. And you know, as a legacy tech player, how do you think about the evolution of the business? And for those of us that are on the line here that are not involved in the space, but some of the things that they do relate to it, how do you move? How do you, what is it, make the elephant dance here? What are some of the...
Or make the dinosaur dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you know, I think we are a big company, and we do move, you know, somewhat slower. But I think one of the benefits that we have is that we have a fairly large client base that we sell to. Now, I'm not from the hardware side, but I do a lot of work with our labs organization, and we do a lot of work on wearables and sort of inventing things on that side as well. We work in my particular group. We work with a lot of small vendors. Because there is a great deal of interest on the commercial side. Again, you know, I'm going to sort of step back, and wearables is a big space, right? So these health tracking and things that, you know, the very great things that Izzy, Oscar, and Ben are doing are a small part of that. So we look at the commercial side, and there's, you know, great need on the healthcare side. There's great need on IT support. We did some project with U.S. Postal Service, looking at wearables and see how they apply. So I think what we get is we get some big exposure into large implementations, but we also then have to rely on the ecosystem of small vendors or startups that do have some innovative things. And again, we try to mix that all in. I'm not here to sell. I don't sell HP solutions. I'm out there really looking at what's out there. You know, I think you mentioned today about I saw the tracking device on Kickstarter that measures hydration. You know, I kind of look at that and say, boy, you know, it'd be great if we can actually bring that as a proof of concept to the military or have people out in the field, right? So we deal a lot with organizations that have agents out in the field, so trying to track them remotely. And again, I go back to that whole security thing, different than privacy. So, you know, one of the questions is, how do you encrypt all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So guess what? You know, there's sort of physics involved here because a lot of these wearable devices are on battery, and to encrypt things eats up a lot of juice. So all of a sudden, you know, wearing battery packs and things like that have to come into play. So we look at sort of different things. We do, but, you know, again, as a big company, we have different use cases we work under, and we do have to rely on startups and new ventures.
I'm going to ask one more question to Issy. Then we have about 4 or 5 really good questions that have come in. I encourage everybody to come in. I want to give folks the opportunity to be unmuted and ask those questions. So, Issy, just as jumping over to David, I mean, stress in the military and some of the ways to sell your product beyond just that consumer that approach. How have you thought about that? Some of the channels for the product how do you make a decision like that about, you know, going consumer versus some of these more industrial channels?
Yeah, no, for us, our influencer channels, so high performers, which include military personnel and athletes, and also first responders, police, firemen, you know, people who have stressful jobs, moments, but where chemicals are not the solution, right, to what they need. You know, that ability to fully rest and recover and perform and be able to basically be in the zone you want to be in when you need to be. That to us is a huge way of validating our technology and showing people in terms of stress, You want to be able to show that you can help people fully recover after very stressful events, whether they're competitions or their actual missions, or crises that the people are responding to. And you want to be able to show people that they can take care of themselves when they're in those professions in a better way. So yes, absolutely. That's one of our key priorities for and learnings from our first product is that first responders, military, and athletes, all really important ways to validate.
That's very cool. I promise, a couple cool questions have come in. I'm going to see if I can unmute. Georgie, I've unmuted you on the line here, and you have a couple of really good questions about device abandonment. Georgie, can you speak there? Can we hear you? You want to?
Yeah. Hello.
Great. Great, Georgie. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from Baltimore. I'm a master's student and research assistant at Johns Hopkins in biomedical engineering. And I'd like to thank you all for doing this panel. It's been really informative. And my question would be if you've seen differences in device abandonment, depending on whether people use it as just kind of a flashy extra tool, or if they actually get health information or very useful information in an everyday situation. So does that change how much people tend to not use their device? Or is it just about the same across the board and absolutely dependent on the culture around the app or whether people like the app itself or not?
I can take a first stab at that, and I'm sure Ben has some great insight into it. We actually, interesting enough, we rely on device abandonment. We were looking to get that pool of people that have thrown their Fitbit into the drawer and have not been using it, and say, hey, why don't you go put it on your grandma or your grandpa, and get them to start using it. So in one sense, we were actually looking at that device abandonment, which I'm sure you've researched and you've seen that it can be quite high depending on the device, and to that end. But I do think, and you might have touched on it, was we've actually prevented some device abandonment in the sense that if you're using it to make sure your mom and dad or your grandma or grandpa are okay, the minute they take it off, the monitor is no longer getting the information, and we have a button on the app that allows you to call them. So it says, hey, why aren't you wearing your device? So that we kind of go old school on preventing device abandonment once they've registered with us.
That's a great point.
That's very good.
Wow.
Yeah, that social pressure that Oscar's talking about, I mean, that's key, right? I mean, if you're tied into some sort of social thing where it's like it's your peers or your family members and you take it off, that's awesome. We sort of think of our people in various different groups. You're going to have the data nerds who are going to essentially wear it till they drop. I fit into that category. I've been wearing a pedometer for 10 years, and I still look at it pretty regularly. So, and then there's a lot of other bits that tie you in there. Like I was saying before, if at any point you begin to doubt the accuracy of it, then the device is as good as gone. And we've seen actually some real weird things here. I'm not going to name any vendors' names, but we have devices that are super accurate, and we have devices that are accurate, but they tend to exaggerate upwards, so it makes you look a little better. Those ones always win out in the market. I mean, it's kind of terrible, but if you're like comparing two different devices, you want the device that tells you you're doing better over the device that tells you you're doing worse. So I mean, that's a terrible thing to admit out loud, because now I think all those device manufacturers are going to go out there and exaggerate your things, but I think they do better in the market. And then we try to add layers on top of that to keep people invested in that device. There's the social layer and the layer where it's fashionable. There's a layer of gamification. There is at the corporate wide level. There's incentivization, and then building in long-term goals. So I mean, I think there's a number of things there, but it's sort of each platform's got to sit on top of the previous one.
Great. I want to unmute Maxim here, who has a pair of questions for Issy. Maybe Maxim, are you there? Can you?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
He can hear you. Where are you calling in from, Maxim?
I'm calling in from Washington, D.C.
Awesome. Awesome. So You've got some questions about wearable technology startups and traction and funding, and for Issy, maybe just fire them off to the group, and I think you got some interesting things for the group to share here. So fire away.
Absolutely. So just a quick bit of context. So I was the founding chief product officer of a company called Life Fuels, which is ongoing, and we raised $3 million in seed. And I have stepped aside to start a new company in the medical device space. And my first question for the whole group is, startups are obviously strapped for both cash and time. And the regulatory hurdles for certainly hardware in the medical device arena, is incredibly high. So I'm wondering if any of you guys have experience or thoughts on how startups can overcome those obstacles when they're seeking true medical applications.
I know both Issy and Oscar have comments on that. Issy, you want to start?
Sure. Well, as a medical device company, Think is not us one, but certainly have helped others who are. I think there are two paths, because I think it is capital intensive. Any way you look at it, you have to be able to move through the regulatory path, and that just takes time, which is basically, and not just money on the trials, but just takes time to run your company while those things are happening. And so I do think you have to get to the point where you're raising $10 to $20 million to really have a chance at building a company. So what that means is that your seed funding is really all about either getting to the point where you can present a really compelling case to the investors that are going to write that check, and there are many of them who out there. So that's the great news is there's a whole industry that you can talk to, and they're generally looking for the same things. They want a proprietary technology with a clear development path, reimbursability, and clear endpoints where the market, the risk of the market's low. They basically want a situation where they feel like they'll take the technology risk in the trials, but everything else is really highly likely to happen. And if you can deliver that, I think you can raise your $10 to $20 million that you need, or you need to get government or other sources of grants that allow you to run the trials, take it further, without the big money from the VC community. I may look at it too narrowly, but those are the things I think of. Those are the paths I see, being realistic when you start a medical device company.
That's great. Oscar, I'm sure this is something that comes up at Reassure in terms of the pathway to take and regulation and going that device, the pathway of being a device. What are some of the thoughts you have in that regard, and how?
Yeah, just real quick, and this may sound like like I'm deflecting, but look, my biggest question that whenever anyone comes up to me and asks me about this is, do you need a medical device? Because I think there's this sense of, I think Izzy's absolutely right. The hurdle, before you figure out how do I get around this hurdle easier, determine whether you have that hurdle in front of you in the first place. What is your end goal? We started off with Reassure Analytics. We were creating our own device, and we were looking at making it a medical device. We were looking for, we were shooting for the stars. And then we sat back and had a couple strategy meetings and realized what was our end goal, and did the medical device, was that a requirement for that end goal? And I think this health and wellness space is going to explode for two reasons. One, because of what Izzy was saying. To get something approved as a medical device takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of energy, and a lot of effort. So I think you're going to find a lot of people putting their toe just up to the line of medical device in the health and wellness space to actually get more actionable stuff done within a reasonable amount of time, not only for the consumer desire, but also for a company's survival. So I know that probably didn't answer your question directly, but for me, and just so you know, my co-founder had 8 years experience in a major company in medical device as a director of medical device R&D. So the fact that we decided not to go medical device was pretty significant.
I want to work here. Al, Pernia, I'm going to work to unmute you, Al. Al, can you mute it, Al? How are you, Al?
I'm good, Jay. How are you doing?
Great to hear your voice. And you have a question here, kind of a platform question. Maybe we'll throw that out to the group. Fire away.
Yeah, I'm actually here in Silicon Valley. I was at the Pioneer Summit, and there was a lot of interesting talk about these online health apps and these devices. And there was a very interesting presentation by this lady who's the managing partner at Floodgate, talking about nobody really has a platform that all these apps and equipment are going to be based on. I was wondering if you guys are aware of any platform that they can tie into.
Are you talking about a platform to tie into all the mobile device data?
Yeah, somewhere where the data can rest and people can have one location to go to and access whatever that's being tracked.
Yeah, there is. There's a couple of them. Ben, do you want to go ahead and talk about it?
Sure, yeah. There's a couple that we know about. Validic is one, and they're an aggregator of medical device data, activity trackers, and the other one that we know of is Human API. So maybe you have more to add to that, Oscar?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. And I think this is going to be sort of where this is going to be going in the future with a lot of things. Is there going to be third-party aggregators that you're going to be able to go in and tap into. But as an entrepreneur, one of the things as an entrepreneurial endeavor, what we had to do was make sure it's not an all-comers can work. We actually, people asked us, why do we pick certain platforms to start off with? It's actually how the wearable interacts with the device. A quick example, Fitbit and the iOS, if you get your Fitbit connected to an iOS device, it actually, in that app goes into the background, it doesn't update as quickly. It can take as many as 2 to 3 hours for it to update the data. And so we had to actually test out all those different systems to ensure, for our purposes, what was the best platform and what were the best connections to what devices. But back to the thing, I think a lot of this, the aggregating of the data, you're going to see a lot more third-party aggregators out there as that data becomes more and more valuable to not only tap but also mine.
Yeah, I think Microsoft also has a platform, also as an aggregator. But I think what I see, at least from a consumer side too, is that right now we're still such an early stage that a lot of these vendors tend to be fairly isolated in what they do and how they interact with you. So it's to their best interest that there isn't this big aggregator of data. They all want to kind of keep it in their domain. So, but I do agree that that's gonna be a big play for this space to get bigger. You're gonna have some neutral party that's gonna be an aggregating platform. But I think there are a number of vendors that are trying to be in that space, and I think they've had other efforts, and that's growing because of all this wearable space growing right now.
You know, guys, there's so much here, and there's so many threads of really interesting conversation and business opportunity and that are being opened up here. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We're at the top of the hour. I come back to kind of wrapping it with, talking about David and the way he describes his profile of mobile plus digital plus apps plus Internet of Things plus wearables plus cloud plus enterprise plus monetization plus government plus agile. And I think that, wearables, the things we're talking about here, that is so much unbalanced. Like, you always say that you just want the positives to outweigh the negatives, and that's something that we want to pursue. And, there's challenges in the space, but wow, so much possibility. When you think about data and the ability to improve health outcomes because of this amazing treasure trove of data that's being created on what's working, what's not working with different treatment modalities and with fitness, it's incredible. I just think about the benefit of expanding lifespan with what Issy and Ben and Oscar are doing, right? I mean, that alone, giving people more life, and wearables is an enabling technology for that. So really exciting stuff. I want to really thank all of the panelists here. I would love to have, have a few beers with these guys and just kind of go into some of these things that are so interesting. But I want to thank everybody, Oscar and Ben and Issy and David, for your time here, to our audience for participating. We'll get a recording of the webinar out, and there'll be opportunities that if anybody would like to reach out to any of the panelists, I'm happy to pass on. If you send a note in response to the webinar, I can pass on your contact information to them, and as appropriate, I'm sure they can reach out to you. But guys, that was great stuff, guys. Great stuff. Really exciting, and I look forward to hopefully doing this again. Maybe we'll try to put this back on the calendar in 6 months, a year, and see where everything is at. Of course, Issy, Ben, and Oscar, they won't be here. They're going to be on their yachts in the South Pacific. They're going to make much money with their company. So
we'll invite you, David.
Right.
David will be working.
Have a great weekend.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Thanks,
everybody. Good.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.